Welcome to War Games in the Sales Genius Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Ingram. Today, we're deep diving into the world of revenue enablement with none other than Paul Butterfield, founder of the Revenue Flywheel Group and a luminary in the field of sales and marketing. With a rich background that includes leading sales and enablement initiatives for some of the world's most recognized companies. Paul brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the table. He's going to share his insights that, guys, this is what's necessary. It's on creating the exceptional customer experience. Okay, so whether you're looking to refine your sales approach or seeking innovative ways to engage your customers, Paul's expertise will provide you with the guidance you need to succeed, and he encourages questions all the way through. So let's not be scared. But let's start by getting the show going.
Welcome to War Games, hosted by the sales genius Joe Ingram. If you're looking to win the sales battle, then you have joined the right team. In the War Games group, we devise strategies for sales, marketing, branding, mindset, and attitude. We enlist the assistance from the most successful producers across all industries. We then share their knowledge and techniques with you. Our single goal is to get you ready for your next sales opportunity. When it comes to crossing the minefield of sales, step in the footprints of those that have crossed before you. Now, prepare yourself for boot camp and beyond. It's time for the War Games to begin.
Hey, I'm back. Guess who's here with me? It's Paul Butterfield. Paul, welcome. We had a great conversation yesterday talking about, a little call an audible, and let's make it something wonderful for everybody in here, knowing that everybody's going to be an entrepreneur or a salesperson that really does need to sell something today. So again, I read off your bio, got that going so everybody knows a little bit about who you are. What did I miss in that bio that you want to make sure we throw out there?
Sales. I love sales. Let's just leave it at that. Sales, it's been said before, it is the greatest profession out there. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, but it's great. I love it. And so thanks for letting me come on, geek out a little bit with your crew. I've been excited to walk them through. But all seriousness, what I want to do is walk through things that this is field tested stuff. 25 years or so of leading sales teams and training teams and all that. So we'll have some fun.
Fantastic. No, I do love it because, again, that's what we connected on, was that we've actually done this, right? It's not theory like a lot of the trainers out there that just put it out there. So I want to bring up the presentation you prepared for us, because that's going to make it easy for people to do screenshots and what have you so that we can do it. And again, tag him on social media. In the show notes, you will find, a link to his LinkedIn where you can go find him. But again, share the love. So,
all right.
I am putting you back in the driver's seat, Paul.
We ready?
We're ready.
Locked and loaded? Let's do it. All right.
Let's do it.
Well, hey, how's everybody doing? Again, excited to be here. Excited to talk about this stuff. As Joe intimated, what I want to share with you are some things that I have found over working in sales for my entire career. At the highest level, it's just what you see on the screen. You really can differentiate by how you sell, how you interact with prospects. Yeah, you got to have a solid product. You have to believe in what you're selling. I don't want to discount any of that, but it's how you do it that can make a difference. And the thing is, the bar is still really low. I'm sure a lot of you get outbound through LinkedIn and email and stuff like I do. And excuse me, but most of it is 100% shit. So like I say, that's the good news. You have the opportunity to do something different, be something different. So that's what I want to walk you through. And please also jump in with questions. Joe's going to be, Joe, for some reason, we're not advancing. And I don't know why. It worked before you had us go live.
I don't know that I can do it. Let me pull it out and then.
Okay, try again. Yeah, it was working. Again.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Do me a favor, drop out again. Let me see, because it was advancing in the green room. You know what? And it stopped now. It was working for us before the show. What's going to be the best way to do this?
I would say just remove the attachment and put it back in.
Okay, let me just do that real quick. Sorry, everybody.
No, this is what we're doing. Look, see, Brian pointed it out. Yeah, Joe's a showstopper. Yeah.
Joe's the showstopper, so it's not me. All right,
Yeah.
good to know.
Brian's normally on the screen with us. He's the one I told you was driving. So,
got it.
Yes.
All right.
So now it's time for my interpretive dance.
The interpretive dance. All right.
Yeah.
So it's back up. It's working. It's advancing now. So see if we can bring it back.
All right. Let's add us back up. Let's see.
All right, everybody.
Hey.
Yay. So everybody can read as well as I can. We're not going to go through all of this, but I just thought some of it might just be helpful background because I don't know about y'all, but one of the things that frustrates me, especially on places like LinkedIn, are the sales influencers that have never sold anything. I want to just say something. I hold back. That's not me. I haven't sold it all. I haven't done it all. And I don't know it all, but I've learned a lot. And what we want to go through today is what I want to hopefully be able to pass some of that along and answer questions. So welcome to 24. We're a quarter in, almost a quarter in. I talk to people in a lot of different industries, and this is some pretty universal stuff I'm seeing, right? Win rates are down. It's tough. When you do win, it's getting dragged out. And depending on whose research you read, average number of decision makers is up anywhere from 25 to 50% getting involved in deals. CFOs are reaching down into deals normally they would never bother themselves with. Just a lot of stuff going on. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, so much of the selling that I see out there with clients I work with people that are trying to sell stuff to me, is that old school definition of selling, which I consider convincing, persuading, and overcoming objections. Now, on the surface, you may wonder, you got to do some of that stuff. I want to show you a way that you're going to do it, but you're not doing it in the way that maybe people think of, and people are not going to feel sold to. Again, 2024, you can't control all those things that I just talked about. None of us, at least I don't think any of us, can control that. This is one of my favorite quotes. John Maxwell, if you're into books on leadership, highly recommend his stuff. It's one of my favorites. But I've always loved this quote about him. You can bitch about it. You can complain about it. You can sit back and be an optimist and say, hey, because some of us have been selling in some of us were selling in 2008. Some of us were selling during some really rough times. And it is cyclical. It always comes back. But I love the last part. The person who's getting in front of it is going to be the one that leads. And so hopefully you'll walk away today with some ways to adjust your sales. I assume everybody on here knows how to sell. This is not a sales 101. What my goal is here is to hopefully show you some ways to refine things, talk to you about some things that I have seen that worked for me. I still use it in selling. I have to go out and find new clients for my consulting business every day. So I'm not retired yet. So I know it works. And this is the topics that we're going to go through. And then we'll wrap up with what I have found to be the number one attribute of top sellers. And I'll be curious to see what you think that might be before we get there and wrap up. So let's start with discovery. As you may have guessed, I'm not a big fan of rushing to the demo, because discovery is really for one thing only. And we'll get into some details. There's a lot behind it, but the one thing it is for you to help your prospect start to create their own vision. You're in sales. Your opinion, honestly, does not matter to them, and at least not this early in the relationship. But how can you help them create their own vision of how what you sell, offer, deliver can get them from where they are today to where they need to get their business in the future? That if they don't come out of discovery feeling and intellectually seeing it for themselves, you probably don't have the foothold that you think you do into the deal. So want to walk through what I have found effective discovery actually looks like. Number one, don't be a waiter. I don't know if we talked about this show or not. Don't be a waiter. What do waiters do? You sit down, you tell them what you want, and they bring it to you. Maybe a few suggestions, but that's basically what they do.
Correct.
If you're a seller, you're not a waiter. If you're a seller, You need to be coming prepared to help them think about things differently. We were talking about the Challenger book right before we came on here, Joe, and I'm a fan of it. There's some great concepts in there. One of my favorites is when they talk about discovery, they say that at some point, if that prospect doesn't look at you, and when you ask them a question, they say, I don't know, because I've never thought about it that way. Guess what? You probably had an average discovery call, and you probably checked off boxes that all your competition's checking, but you didn't do a lot to set yourself apart. So
correct.
How do you do that? We'll talk about that. The other thing in discovery, some prospects, if they're inbound, especially if they've raised their hand, they may come to you with a well-defined problem. They may be feeling the pain. There's something, but no matter whether it's inbound or outbound, if they opted in to have a meeting with you, I guarantee something's broken. They may not be very good at articulating it or defining it for you, but something's broken. I've yet to meet the person that, well, let's put it this way. If they will meet with salespeople as a hobby because they're bored, they probably work in the basement with a red stapler. Office Space fans.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. But the people you want to talk to, they do not talk to salespeople unless they feel like there's a reason. So the first thing is you need to be doing as a seller, and not, again, no demo. We're not here to talk about the product. We're here to talk about them. We're here to help them define and share with us, is there an actual need for change? I mean, if you're selling luxury goods and there's things like that people will maybe go into debt for just because it's such an emotional thing and they want it, okay. But most of us live in a world where no one's going to buy anything until their current state becomes untenable. They're just not going to spend the money, and they're not going to spend the effort, right? It's especially depending on what you're selling. I mostly come in the world of SaaS. And when you're going to come in and you're going to implement a new SaaS platform, that's disruptive, and it's got to be worth it. So defining change, or helping them just see that their current situation has got to change. That's only the first half. Then the second half is why change with you, and help them see that they should change with you. Two critical steps there. And what you see going on, I'm a hand talker, so here they come. I knew it would happen. So
yes,
what you're doing in having this conversation, and your ultimate goal needs to be to determine, is there a gap between their current state, where they are, and where they need to be? And then how big is that gap, and can you measure that gap? Yes, emotional measurements can come into play, but there's got to be some pain to the business. There's got to be something that's affecting revenue, it's affecting cost of sales, affecting customer satisfaction and churn. All sorts of things could be going. In fact, my last corporate role, I was a VP, sales VP at an ed tech firm. And believe it or not, even schools, all we sold to were K-12 and higher ed. And what I learned is even schools have business problems. Don't you dare call that a business problem to their face. They get really upset about that. But they do. Everybody's got something that's not going well, and there's a cost to it. The bigger the gap, the bigger the solution, and the better that the opportunity is going to go. That's why it's so critical. Do you need to change? Yes, I do, because wow, you are showing me, helping me to find this hole in my business that this hurts a little bit, right? Y'all have heard it called a hurt and rescue exercise.
Yes.
I don't believe in emotional manipulation, but I do think there's a lot to that concept, because again, not everyone comes to you. They know something's wrong, but maybe they haven't thought it through. That's your job. Understand your market, understand them, be able to talk about that. And then I referred to this at the beginning, Joe. The change with you comes through that vision creation. Don't over-focus, I should say, on becoming their friend. Don't over-focus on relationships. In my experience, thank you. I feel very validated now.
People so with you. Yes.
People buy from others that that fulfill a few things for them. Number one, they perceive as authentic. Authenticity is key. If you can fake that, you've got it made. Kidding. But seriously, right? And nobody's got time for BS sales people. Number two, are you a serious individual? Do you carry yourself in a way? Do you present yourself in a way? But most importantly, do you know your market? Do you know your buying, your typical buying profiles, your ICPs, whatever you happen to call it? Do you understand their world? You're a 34-year-old AE. You're never going to be able to completely walk in the shoes of a CFO you're talking to. But don't sell yourself short. If a CFO is typical profile that you're talking to, think of the hundreds, if not thousands of CFOs you've talked to. Think of what you've learned in those conversations. You're bringing that to the conversation as well. You're bringing insights and things they don't have. I can talk a lot about this, but own that. Own it, right? And then the final thing, so number one, authentic. Number two, you're a serious individual. And then number three, and this is that vision creation, can you help them do something that they can't do for themselves? If you can fulfill those three needs, people are going to want to spend time with you, and ultimately, you'll close a lot more deals. I talked about, in fact, just one thing on the demo. What you don't see in there is the demo. I'm not saying that there's never an opportunity for product in that first conversation, but I will suggest this. The less you mention your product, the less you mention the names of your product, and don't even mention product features at all. And the more that you focus on, if I'm selling to Joe, the more I focus on why did he take this meeting? What's the gap in his business that he's trying to fill? And what's the cost to him if he doesn't fill it? That's time well spent for a couple of reasons. One, I don't, wow, you got some friends on here, Joe.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Because think about if you went to the doctor and before you got very far, they pulled out their prescription pad and they start writing something out. When you show up, you ask a few questions, you show them maybe a pitch deck or two, pick some slide, and you start showing them your product, it's almost as insulting. You don't really know what they want. The product will come along. They'll want to talk about it if you help them identify the gap. Can't stress that enough on discovery. The good news is, again, the bar's low. Very few companies I work with are doing this. Now let's talk about opportunity criteria. BANT sucks. I'm just going to say it. BANT sucks. And it has for a really long time. It's not because it's old, because I've been selling a while and it was bad. And here's why I say that. In my experience, okay, and I assume everybody knows BANT, but just to be sure, budget, authority, need, time frame. Here's what I've learned. If you talk to somebody, if you wait, to only spend time with someone, maybe you have SDRs that are sourcing for you. Maybe you have partners that are sourcing for you. Certainly if you're sourcing for yourself, and I hope you are. If you've forgotten how to cold call, go learn again.
Shame on you.
Shame on you, yeah. But if you're doing that and you're only focusing on people that have BANT, authority, need, and time frame, two things happen. One, in my experience, you're probably going to limit your pipeline and you're never going to have the coverage you need to succeed. There aren't that many out there that are going to check 3 or 4 of those boxes. But here's the bigger problem. If they've already got a budget and a time frame established, I'll bet you dinner at Ruth's Chris. You're not even close to the first one they're talking to. And somebody else
already got 3 people, or they got 2 people
yeah,
already.
Exactly.
Right? That corporate idea of like have to have 3 proposals. Yes.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that even goes back to the discovery thing I was talking about, Joe. I have people tell me, well, what if the customer doesn't want to answer questions? They just want a demo. Then you decide how you want to handle it. But I would politely find a way to walk as soon as possible, because if they're a serious buyer who is in a serious evaluation mode, they'll welcome your curiosity. Otherwise, they're probably just trying to get a price and a quote and get out of there. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. And I want to look at, because you got my brain firing up. So when you look at it, though, the person who says, I just want the demo and what have you.
Yep.
Maybe it's a CEO, maybe it's anybody else, but that's more of their ego, right? For the posturing. And that person's not going to give you what is the actual gap anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Because their ego won't let them say, I have a need. I need something else, right? They're going to sit back and go, no, everything's great. I'm just seeing what you have.
Then why are we here? I'm so glad you mentioned that, because we've all been taught over the years about uncover the pain and pain points and that sort of thing. Yes, that is ultimately what you're trying to understand. But to your point, I found that especially the more senior the leader you're talking to, the easier it is to get them to open up and talk about future state. What are your goals for the business, the vision for the business? What is it going to take to get there, as opposed to getting to admit that something's broken and they're all, by almost saying that they're failing in some element of the job. Two sides, both sides of the same coin, but I found that it's a little easier to get people to talk about goals and future state, focus less on pain. But back to BANT. So you're going to limit yourself. The number, like I say, you don't want to be the second and third one in there. The other problem, so here's what I have found. A seller, a professional seller, not a peddler, understands and is skilled at identifying if they're talking to somebody with authority, the A, and they're skilled at helping that person define whether or not there's a need. If you're doing those two things properly, people with real authority will make budget and they'll set the timeline. It's just the way it is. And if you're talking to somebody that can't do that, you probably need to be calling higher in the organization. So that's why I say
you have an expensive microphone. Otherwise, I'd say drop it right there. Just boom, drop the mic.
Drop mic drop. Okay, we done? Everybody go home early. All right,
everybody, we're out.
Everybody go home early. We're out.
Yes.
So that's number one. That's why that's not your BANT is not your friend. But think about what we've been talking about in the discovery, what a true discovery looks like. If you've done that, think of what you understand now. What is their current state? What is their future state? What is the impact of continuing the way they are? What is the perceived benefit? Hopefully, needs to be measurable that they have identified by getting to that future state. If you have somebody that will open up and talk to you about that, that's an opportunity. That's something worth converting. You're not going to close them all. No. My experience, a lot of different organizations, we would at that stage, we would put something probably about 10%, 10 to 20%, depending on where I was, who am I working with. But you want to get that in your pipeline. The challenge that I've seen with pipelines is once you let crap in the top, it takes on a life of its own. And it's hard to get it out of there. And we all know why, right? I mean, if we're honest, when we go to a pipeline review with our boss, what's our objective? It's to make them happy for another week.
Without getting fired.
Exactly, right? and a thin pipeline makes that harder to do. I get it. But you're doing yourself a lot of good if you're more particular about what you let in. In fact, almost think of it as an inverted funnel where you're letting fewer opportunities in the top, but you're going wider, you're multi-threading, and you're spending more time with the ones that make it in. Now, if you work in a company where SDRs are feeding you any percentage of your opportunities, you probably have had your share of rock fights. And if you haven't had that happen, you've at least had what I call the hook a brother up close at the end of the quarter when they need to convert just one or two more to hit their bonus, right?
Oh, and yeah. He's preaching reality here.
You've been there. I've been there, rather. You've been there. We've all been there. So right. If you happen to be sales leader on this call, this will create so much less, I'd say, friction between your sales teams. Because that is a criteria that I just described that as a sales leader, you're probably much more comfortable with. There's something there to do. And it's also objective. Either a prospect shared those things or they didn't share those things. AEs can't cherry pick. SDRs can't try to just, force stuff through. Your funnel stays clean. Your life stays less stressful. And frankly, your forecasting goes up. So having standardized opportunity criteria that's business-based and that aligns with what your prospect's working on makes all the difference in the world. Talk about multi-threading, building a sphere of influence, account planning, so many words, or so many different phrases for the same thing. And even if you only talk to one or two, there may some of you on here that do one or two call close. You're selling into small and micro businesses, single decision maker, all of that. I would say that everything we've talked about up till now applies just as much. Treat them the same way, talk to them the same way. But most of us have to deal with more than one stakeholder. And if it's not a very small business with an owner you're working with, and they tell you, I'm the only decision maker, they're not. There's just no way. So why would they say that to you? Well, sometimes people have an inflated sense of worth. But setting that aside, if you think about it, asking for them to introduce you to other people in their company is actually a pretty big deal. They don't know you. Even if you just had a really great discovery meeting with them that they were impressed with, they still is one meeting. So I wouldn't be entirely comfortable introducing you to my peer, much less my boss at that point. I get where they're coming from. I understand it. But if we don't get that access, our chances of success go down dramatically. So what are we going to do about it? Well, first of all, I go back to the discovery. I just, you can tell I'm a discovery. To me, it's just so critical. Think about what that experience was like for them. You're now able to show them that you are a different kind of seller, that you are serious, that you do your homework, that you come ready to have a conversation about business and not just push product down their throat. That alone should increase their comfort level. The other thing you've done is you've helped them define a measurable gap in the business. So if Joe was my initial contact, and we talk a lot about champions, different definitions for that. Here's my definition of a champion. A champion is, first of all, somebody who will have that business conversation with me and won't just try to force me into a demo and a proposal. They'll sit, they'll talk to me, they're serious. The second test of a champion is they have the political juice and the willingness to bring me into those other decision maker relationships. So say I have Joe to the point, and he's right. We're rocking and rolling. We've kicked off the relationship really well, but now he's going to go ask his boss to spend some time with me. Joe, what's the first thing your boss is probably going to say when you tell him you want him to meet with a sales guy?
He's going to say, why do I need to do this?
Right.
What is it that it's supposed to benefit us from? But they'll try to get the demo from me more so than anybody else and say, just tell me the summary and I'll tell you no right now. That way I get my time back.
Well, to save yourself a lot of time. Let's go back to the summary part. If I have been effective in my sales approach to you and actually helped you put some definition to a problem, and you've started to see that my company and I may be able to help you solve that problem, there's your summary. Here's why I'd like you to meet with them. We have been talking for the last 4 quarters about X, and this is what I talked about with this individual. I think there's something there. I think it's worth you spending your time. So I'm summarizing very quickly here, but I have found that makes all the difference. I'm loading the lips of my champion and giving them probably more definition of why others should meet. Maybe it's not the boss. Maybe it's just a peer, right? Another leader in the company or something like that. But we want to set them up for success in going in and pitching the idea of why somebody should actually spend their time meeting with us. Because if we're not doing discovery with all DMs, we're missing something. I work, again, I'm in consulting now. I work with a lot of companies, and I'm amazed at how many still consider discovery a binary state. Yep, we did discovery. They're qualified, but we talked to one person. Everybody that's going to be involved in this decision is looking at the gap differently. And if it's if it's a larger sale, mid-size and enterprise, they probably have their own gap that they're dealing with that you can help them address. So best case, you have the opportunity to expand that business case and solve multiple problems within the company, and perhaps expand what you're selling, and you're not going to leave money on the table. Worst case, if you miss doing discovery with one of these key folks, you could have a dark horse in there that's going to, hand you a nasty surprise at the end. So just don't set yourself up for that. Anything on your thoughts on that, Joe?
So here's a stat that I found in myself that I'd heard, so I wanted to bounce it off you, Paul. Sure. As soon as a company gets over 100 employees, the decision-making team is in excess of 7 people.
That wouldn't surprise me. I haven't heard that exact stat, but I know, everybody, Forrester, Gartner, Sales Benchmark Index, everybody's out measuring this stuff. And everybody agrees that it's on the rise. My experience shows that it's on the rise. And so 100, I'm not sure, I can't comment on whether the 100's the marker or not, but that's a decent sized business. If you've got 100 full-time employees, you're generating some revenue. And yeah, you're going to have a lot of people involved in it.
And nowadays, I mean, gone are the days where you walk in, talk to an owner in most industries, right? Walk in, talk to an owner, and they're like, that sounds good. Let's put it in. Right. And then they tell the rest of the executive team, this is what we're doing. Right now, everybody's got to get consensus because everyone's afraid of bringing you in and then having it go wrong.
Right. That's a great point. Little CYA there.
Yeah,
right. It wasn't just my idea. Sue and Jerry and Bill thought it was a good idea too.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
If you remember, you were all in the meeting and you all voted yes. Right. So it's not.
We all agreed. We all agreed there was a business case. No, nobody had a problem with it then. That's a great point. Thank you. Let's talk about keeping control.
Sorry, on that, in that same vein, right? When you're looking at that, you have to now sell to 7 different people. Yeah. Right? My buddy Brian, who's normally on here, he's watching. Brian always talks about that. You have to go read each person, right? Right. Like you look at it and it's like, now you've got a whole quilt when it comes to multi-threading. Right? Do. When you get all these people in a room.
And as I said, they may not all be trying to address the same problem. Depending on what you sell and the scope of it, you may be able to solve multiple problems within the company. Remember, in these discovery meetings, we're not going in assuming we know what they want. We're not going in there and pitching any particular product or service that we offer. We're asking questions, we're being curious, and we're listening, which also opens up the opportunity for us we're not painting ourselves into a corner early in the relationship. So as we're having these other discovery meetings, very often we're going to discover additional opportunities. So when we do get to the demo and proposal phase of the relationship, we've got a lot more to talk about, and it's a lot easier to do it that way than to go back later and try to bolt something on that you missed in the first part of the conversation. Right. So great. I appreciate that. We've got good discovery. We're building a sphere of influence. We're building a business case with these. And when I talk about a business case, I want to really caution people about a couple of things I found. Number one, try to eliminate the term ROI from your vocabulary if you're a seller. Here's why. Those of you who've been to business school know what I'm saying. But for anybody else's benefit, ROI, when you get to the CFO or frankly anybody, director of finance, anybody in finance, and your senior executives that may have gone through MBA school, there's a very specific definition of ROI. And in that definition, I have never experienced a situation where a prospect was going to share all of the financials, inside financials you need to do a true ROI calculation. And yeah, I've worked for software companies where we had spreadsheets we called ROI calculator. Sorry, but to me, the biggest thing with that is, I'm asking Joe, all right, Joe, I got 20 questions for you. I'm going to put all these numbers in. I'm going to hit enter. And oh my gosh, our solution is going to make you a bunch of money. Right. Who's surprised, right? We wrote the spreadsheet. It's not ROI, but here's where you are on very safe ground. What is the potential benefit? What are the potential financial gains? What are you see where I'm going with this. If you're using their numbers and you're staying away from that specific phrase, you're not going to lose credibility. If there's a credibility gap when you do get to the senior level, it may be between some of them internally, but as a seller, you're not going to be the one that's twisting in the wind because you're talking about an ROI and the CFO knows you have no idea what you're talking about. Use their numbers, stay on safe ground. Go ahead.
There's also what I found too is that a lot of people at this point in time, while we're talking about the deal and what have you, we turn on that, well, let's break it down to the most simplest formula for success. And what I hear them do it. So now a lot of my experience is automotive, right? Or if we look at it from real estate or brokerage or anybody who's out there, financial services, I'm going to charge you this much a month for this. And it's really like only one more customer, right? To cover the expense of me.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right.
Yeah. And so they always trying to go, well, if all you have to do is just sell one more term life insurance and it covers the cost. I'm not in the business of upheaval in my company right? And changing the way everybody does and get everybody's opinion given to me, no matter what I did, because I changed something for one more client. And so that's not the point that you do. And
That's
like
a
you
great
said,
point.
go back and ask them, what's the, what do you see would be the benefits, right? If this were to do this, we're 6 months down the line, right? Vision it again and go 6 months down the line. If we've solved this issue here, what does the end state look like, right? And rekindle that as you're going in, because now they're going, man, this could save me, 200 grand this year. And you're like, yeah, for how much a month? Come on.
Yeah. And in my experience, you don't even have to necessarily get into the how much a month. They're pretty good at doing that math themselves. With that, it goes back to having that critical, different sort of discovery. Help them agree and see that, yes, you cannot continue the way that things are. There needs to be a change. And now it's my job as a seller to help them get comfortable and see that I'm the change. We're the change. What I sell is the change, because they still have options. You always want to be first one in the door. It's great to be there, the one educating, but they're still going to go out and shop you. So you've always got to be showing them why you.
Absolutely. Love it.
If we're now to the stage in the process, Joe, where let's say we've got those 5 to 7, right? We've met with the 5 to 7 stakeholders. We understand, we've defined what their gaps are. We've defined the impacts that they're seeing now. We've defined what the potential financial gains or benefits that they would expect to see when they fix that gap, fill that gap. We're in a great position right now. And some people call these close plans, mutual plans, sequence of events. I've heard lots of names for it. And this, not everybody on here may be in a complex enough sales cycle they need this, but I think it's worth. I still want to spend a few minutes on it so people understand the concept.
Please.
These are very powerful when they're done correctly. And here's what I mean by correctly. If I've done a good job, and Joe as my champion has helped me, and again, we've built some consensus within the decision-making team that, there's a need for change, and there's some consensus that we may be able to be the ones that help them make that change. It's not as pushy. It should not or will not come across as pushy for me to then propose to that executive team, all right, well, based on the business case that we've collectively built, it seems like the next logical step is let's do some evaluation. There are some things, and this is me talking to Joe as my, there are some things that we know we need to go through to show you, make sure we clear the technical requirements that we're going to integrate. We're going to, whatever those things are, right? We know there's some things. There are things on your side when you go through this process that I know we need to go through. Let's put together an action plan, project plan, whatever you want to call it, together to make sure that this really is the right fit for you. Now, I know as a seller that having this in place is a huge benefit to me, but it's also actually is a benefit to the seller as well if we've done it the way that I'm talking about. Now, what I've seen happen is sometimes people make a couple mistakes. Rookie mistake number 1, try to jam this in too early in the process. That just flat out feels pushy. You'll probably get shut down. You haven't earned it yet. You haven't built the case with them. You haven't earned the right to ask for this. It doesn't make sense to them. The second mistake I see people do is they'll show up with a blank spreadsheet or project plan, right? Be thoughtful. If you have access to a sales engineer, customer success, bring it. Remember, selling's a team sport when you do it right. Come with some things filled out. Now, you don't want to dictate to them, but you never want to open up a blank sheet in front of buying executives and make them have to think about all that. Come with something. Ideally, maybe Joe is my champion. He and I have populated both sides of what we think it is, and then we're getting buy-off from the rest of the decision makers. That's the right way to do it. Also, my experience, most buyers will not go through this stage of detail with more than 1 or 2 buyers. You may still be in a bake-off, probably are, but I haven't seen them do this with 3, 4, 5 vendors. At this stage, it's a great test to see, are you actually in the lead column, or at least sharing the lead column with someone else if they'll do this with you. It's just great warning. And you also now have an early warning system, because things will slip. When they slip, how quickly do they bring them back on track? And don't forget that you own this document. Despite everybody's best intentions, milestones will get missed. And if you don't go in there as a seller, reset the missed milestone and then cascade all of the other dates, it's now just a useless piece of useless document. Another mistake I've seen sellers make. They kind of expect the buyer's going to do that. I've never seen that happen. So
no. You're asking a
thoughts
lot.
on that, Joe? Let's talk about negotiation and
yeah, so far you're spot on.
Thank you.
Yep.
Let's talk about negotiation. Cannot stress this enough. Negotiation starts in your very first discovery meeting. And I say that because how you set yourself apart, the perceptions that you create of who you are and the value that you believe you bring to the right. There's arrogance and there's confidence. You bring confidence to the game because you know your stuff, you know your customer, you know your market, and you've been there, done that, and you exude that. You're going to be perceived so much differently when it gets time to negotiate than the person who comes across as nervous, unsure, wants to focus on their feature. They talk about features all the time, things like that, right? So it starts in discovery. It starts while you're building that business case. Your default should not be discounting. I'm not gonna blow sunshine up your backside and tell you if you do this stuff, you'll never discount. I wish that were true. But what I can promise you is discounting will not be your default. There won't be a reason for it to be your default position any longer. From a selfish standpoint, if I discount a deal 20%, what have I got to go do that quarter?
20%.
I got to find another deal worth at least 20% of the one I just discounted and closed, right? Why make my job harder? But in all seriousness, you mentioned this a few minutes ago, Joe, and that is if I've built the right business case, if the gap is big enough, wide enough, that it's going to become self-evident to everyone that the investment that they're making is an investment. It is going to help them fix a problem. Again, I wish I could tell you they're still not going to try to work you for a better price, but you're in a different position now. You've got the leverage, you've got the business case to fall back on. Couple of other things. Number one, if you still find that you're being twisted for price, use the power of quid pro quo. What do I mean by that? Remember, we want to keep set ourselves up and maintain the perception of being equals with our prospects, not somebody that they're doing a huge favor to just to spend any time with. Quid pro quo maintains that. Have some things in mind. If Joe's, again, we're going back to Joe. Joe's hitting me up for a discount. Always. Despite the business case, all of that, that's what it's going to take. Maybe in his company, that's just the way it is. They don't pay list price for anything. I get it. What can Joe do for me? Well, maybe in exchange, he'll agree to be a reference. How many of us would love to have a ready reference in an industry in our back pocket, right? I don't want to abuse that, but 2 or 3 times a year to be able to have Joe talk to a prospect, that's huge for me. Maybe he'll do a joint press release if his company is one it's a logo we want to get out there. Maybe he'll sign a multi-year contract. Maybe he'll add a service pack. But have some things in mind so that when it comes time and you have the conversation, what you never want to do is go and come back, right? Know what you have to negotiate, know what you want from them back. The second thing is you want to, it just went right on my head, right? So the quid pro quo. Oh, and the other thing is do not even offer them until you ask this key question. Is price the only remaining barrier to us signing a contract, Joe? And wait for him to say yes. There is nothing good that comes from multiple rounds of negotiating. And if he can't answer that question,
if it's not the real actual objection, why are you just defending it?
And you're premature. Yeah. You need to go back to steps 1, 2, 3 that we've been talking about, right? Do not negotiate until you're to that point. And the last piece I want to mention on this is if you have to go through a procurement process, always painful. Those of you, that have been doing this for a while probably know a lot of people in procurement are now bonused on the percentage that they save off of contracts and things.
Yes.
But you now have, and don't waste time on quid pro quo. They don't give a shit, right? But what you have now is Joe and the other executives I've been working with know there's going to be impact if this doesn't. We have a sequence of events in place. We have a projected startup time, which means they're looking at having things up and running by a certain time. Leverage that, and don't hesitate to bring your executive, your economic buyer, your executive back in if procurement just digs in and is being unreasonable. But it's a very different position than where a lot of us find ourselves normally. Go ahead, Joe.
Your executive became your champion as well.
Yeah,
and
right.
if it's 5 against 1, that person's going to buckle.
Exactly. Because
blame
thoughts
can
on negotiation? Because it's
Yeah.
tough. Negotiating's tough. This isn't going to make it a walk in the park, but this will set y'all up for more success. And most importantly, you'll keep your dignity and keep that perception of who you are as a professional, as opposed to just somebody that's desperate for a deal.
Absolutely.
What I haven't talked about are closing techniques. Here's why. All right. I know you think you know what's coming, but it's not. It's NBC. Here's why I say that. Closing the way that most of us were taught it. I remember back in the day when smartphones first really became prevalent, there was an app, and I won't say the name of who made this app because some of y'all probably know it, but it was 101 closes for every situation. And this is really old school stuff. The Batman close, right? Remember that one? Boss out of town close, Tarzan close. You can't make this stuff up, right? Horrible stuff. Closing the way that most of us have been taught to do it, closing the way that most salespeople execute it, is persuading, convincing, and probably doing a little arm twisting. Again, I'm a pragmatist. There are sometimes you're going to get to the end of the quarter and you just got to get the deal in, and you're going to have to do stuff that you hold your nose and you do. But the default should be building a business case, listening and understanding where your buyer is in their evaluation and decision process, aligning to that and forecasting to that, which is going to have your forecasting more accurate as well. No time to get into the details of that. Do that another time. But you're never going to find yourself in a position of having to close and really overcome objections in the way that we typically think of it. If you're doing what I'm describing correctly, you're uncovering that as you go. You're understanding what they need to get done as you go. Separate closing from negotiating. We just talked about negotiating, but closing, I'll leave it with that, where you are just do whatever you say you got to do and all of that. If you're to this point and there's still objections, back up and go fix it. Yeah.
Exactly. You skipped over something and thought you got away with it. Yeah.
Or you just missed it. You'd missed it and you didn't realize. And there's no shame in that. Don't try to force the issue. So we've still got 3 quarters to go. A little more than 3 quarters to go. 2024 is not going away.
Right.
But we hopefully now have a different set of tools that we can work with, right? Now we're going to use business acumen. We're going to develop ourselves. We're going to take the time to understand our buyers, and we're going to use business acumen to uncover business gaps and problems that have some financial downside and then upside to them. We now have some tools to help us reduce the sales cycles that are creeping up. They may still be longer than we want them to be, but we're more effective at account penetration, and we also are more effective at getting mutual plans in place. My experience is when you go by ASP, average sales price, average contract value, total contract value, however your company measures it, by not going in, assuming you know what they want to buy and focusing all your effort and conversation on a subset of your products or services, you should see those go up because you're building a broader business case, which almost always opens up additional opportunities for services and products. And I mentioned this before, aligning to your buyer's point of view. Sometimes people misinterpret that and they're like, well, wait, I can give up control of the sales process. Well, first of all, you never actually had control of the sales process.
You did.
You might think you do, but you didn't. And so to the degree that you can listen and understand your buyer's problems and how they're trying to solve them and when they need to solve them and align to that, you're going to reduce the stress in your life because your forecasting is going to get tighter. You're going to have less deals slip. And you're just going to have more fun. It's just that simple. So I promised everybody, Joe, at the end,
Yeah.
I would share what my experience, the number one attribute of successful sellers is. Anybody want to take a guess? Because I've dropped hints about it all through this thing. I don't know if you can see
I already
the chat,
know.
but
So
you want
I
to get
can't
okay.
do it.
Give it a shot, Joe.
Yeah.
What do you think it is?
Well, to me, when I look at it, it's if it is to be, it's up to me, is the mindset I go into, right? When I sit there. So I would just look myself. Originally, my answer is persistence, right? That's the first thing we start talking. You got to be persistent, and that's going to get you to
grind.
that.
Yeah.
But the more I'm listening to you as you go through, I'm sitting back saying, man, you gotta be the go-to person. You gotta be, right. It all sits with me. Is what
it all sits with me. And I would have said the same way. Just own it. Own what you do. Be proud of what you do, and own the fact that you've craft. Now, let's assume some things. You've honed your craft. You're continuously finding ways to improve yourself. You're studying your market, and you're going in, right? You're bringing that, though. Own the fact that brings value from the very first conversation, and carry yourself that way. I don't care what you sell. You're going to sell more. And again, you're going to have more fun doing it. So
that means we sell more, make more money, and have more fun.
Right.
I know I have a lot of fun when I'm making money. So
I have fun when I'm making money too. Again, you're going to hold your breath and hold your nose and do some stuff. Sometimes you don't want it, not unethical, but I mean, sometimes, again, you get to the end of the quarter and your boss comes to you and says, hey, you're the only one on the team close to quota. I got you. You got to pull through two more. You got to pull for 2 deals for me because these other guys aren't going to hit their number, right? You're going to do what you got to do. What I'm trying to show, though, is there's a better way, and there is a way to differentiate yourself by how you're doing it and not relying on your product or discounting to get it done for you. That's it.
And this takes me to LinkedIn.
That takes you to LinkedIn. People can send me a DM, or they could even click on and I am happy to book. I'll send them a link, book a little bit of time. Always happy to talk sales, and anybody that just wants to, ask some questions. It's a little bit of free coaching. It's something I do. Happy to do it.
Absolutely. And then I will be referring you over to a couple other business podcasts, because what you brought was gold. And one of the things you guys need to understand is that maybe you heard him say 1 or 2 things and you're like, I don't think so. Great. Then go grab the other 25 things he dropped in this presentation, right? So think of it as a buffet, right? Or you think of it as a jacket, put it on. If it doesn't fit, move forward. But everything you said is logically based, and it's based on experience. So it comes up, and I don't see there's anything in there for me to sit back and go, no, that I can't believe him. It's not working. So you fake the authenticity well, which is what
I fake it well.
Would get it there. Yes. I've always told people you can rule the world as soon as you can fake the authenticity. So
that's right.
But we have a whole bunch of politicians that do that. But
so if you have any questions pop up, anything that anybody is wondering about or wants to push back and debate, always fun to do that.
Yes. So can you just something that came in? I told you people text, right? I'm going to make it sound a little bit better than what was written. But can you share like any insights on how technology and data play a role in enhancing customer experiences?
How it's enhancing the customer's experience directly.
Right, because that's what we're talking about. Right?
Sure.
How do you do that? But like data, tools, technology.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Couple of things. When I think about it from the customer, lots of things I can think about that benefit us from the selling side. From the customer side, one of the things, thanks, Bob, you're welcome. One of the things that I have found is using digital sales rooms. And there are a variety of companies that offer those. But here's why I found that makes for a better customer experience. You're able to provide information to them that they've either asked for or that you've determined in the course of the relationship, is information. You can push information to them that's going to be relevant without it getting hung up in their spam filter, without them having to go back and dig through 12 emails over the course of the relationship and look for attachments that they may or may not have downloaded. And if you use the right one, I actually have had people tell me that, wow, this is great. I like the look and feel of it. I can go, I can share it. I can do those things. And it's not even terribly expensive technology. That's one that I found that customers have actually commented on. Now, on the flip side of that, a good digital sales room is providing you data that you were talking about. You're going to be able to see, not that you want to pounce or be creepy about it, but understanding when your prospect is thinking about you, your company, because you can see when they're viewing a video, when they're doing those things, is critical insight. You may have the best discovery, et cetera, that they've ever had. But 5 minutes after you get off the Zoom or walk out the door, they've got 20 other things on their plate. They're not necessarily going to come back around. So being able to use something like that to feed them some content, see what they're engaging with, understanding that actually creates a better experience for both of you. So that's the first thing that I think of. Data, there's so many things we could say about that. But from the customer side, I'm trying to think of what else. Here's one thing I will say, though, with technology to be cautious of, and that is don't lose the human element. I see too much of that. There's so many tools that we can use in prospecting and outreach and all of that. And it's easy to lose the human element and the personal touch. And remember, again, people buy from people. They don't buy from bots. And so as you're thinking about how you're using technology, creating that customer experience, make sure you're not losing that human touch, that high touch.
Perfect. So I do thank you very much, Paul, for coming on board. Everybody, you can go hit him at his website that you see scrolling on the bottom. Okay. And then use the QR code, reach out to him on LinkedIn, follow him, tag him when you get there. Right. And so I do want to say thank you. You brought it today. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Joe. This was a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely. And so for everybody else who's watching and listening, go out and sell something. We'll see you later.